Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Clay, and I am the Bucks believer. On Saturday night, we saw the Bucks steal their first road victory of the NBA Finals to take a 3-2 series advantage over the Phoenix Suns. This victory puts the Bucks in a position where, if they're able to win Game 6 on their home court tomorrow night, they will clinch their first NBA title in the past 50 years. In the spirit of tomorrow's game being Game 6, in today's video, I'm going to be giving my 6 biggest keys for Milwaukee winning this championship. These keys will be listed in order from most important to least important. Let's start with my first and biggest key to the Bucks winning the championship, and that is taking care of the basketball. So far in this series, Milwaukee has won 3 of the 5 games have been played. However, the 3 games that the Bucks have won are different from the games that ShotQuality.com has estimated that they would win based off of their shot quality metric. The website estimates that the Bucks would have won 3 of the 5 games played so far. However, they think that the Bucks would have won Game 2 and lost Game 5 when in reality those 2 results were flopped around. The reason why the Bucks won Game 5 and lost Game 2 was because of outlier shooting performances in opposite directions. In Game 2, the Suns shot the ball extremely well and they were able to win the game despite having more turnovers and having a worse shot quality. In Game 5, the Bucks were able to win despite having more turnovers and a worse shot quality because of an outstanding shooting performance as they went 14 for 28 from beyond the arc. This kind of outlier shooting performance cannot be expected to continue in Game 6, and that's why I think that the biggest key is taking care of the basketball. It's important to have as many possessions as you possibly can in the NBA because teams are so good at taking advantage of each and every opportunity that they have to score the basketball. If you're giving the opponent extra possessions and extra opportunities to score, it's never good, especially when those opportunities are frequently in transition where the opponent is able to come away with some easy baskets. We've seen both teams be the beneficiary of winning the turnover battle so far in this series, as the Bucks won the turnover battle in 2 of their 3 wins, and the Suns won in 1 of their 2. But overall, the team that wins the turnover battle is generally the team that's going to be able to win. So, in my opinion, that's the biggest key for both the Bucks and the Suns in Game 6. My second biggest key for the Bucks in Game 6 is to avoid having any defensive lapses. These lapses were few and far between in Game 5, but they were still certainly present. This was especially true when the Bucks didn't have Brook Lopez on the court and they were instead running a switching scheme. The Suns didn't run as many double drag or Spain pick and roll actions as they usually do, but those actions were still present, and when they did come out, we saw the Bucks have some miscommunications leading to the Suns generating some wide open catch and shoot 3-pointers. Phoenix shot that ball especially well in Game 5 as they were 68% from beyond the arc. Fortunately for the Bucks, they weren't able to get too many 3-pointers. However, when they did get those threes, they were usually wide open. So the Bucks need to do a better job of avoiding those defensive lapses and stay attached to shooters at all times to prevent Phoenix from having such a stellar shot-making game in Game 6 like they did in Game 5. This takes me right into my third biggest key for the Bucks in Game 6, which is to force Phoenix to take mid-range jumpers. As I just mentioned, the Suns were outstanding shooting 3-pointers in last game. However, they only shot 19 of those 3-pointers, which is far below what they shot on average in the regular season. They went 13 for 19 from beyond the arc, and that certainly was a big reason why they were able to stay in the game, but because the Bucks forced the Suns to step inside the arc and take contested mid-range shots instead of wide-open 3-pointers, they weren't able to win the ball game. The Bucks need to continue to force Phoenix into those same mid-range jumpers just like they did in Game 5. The biggest reason for this is just that they aren't as efficient of a shot. Yes, teams are more likely to make mid-range shots than they are 3-pointers because they're closer to the basket. Teams shoot about 45% on average on mid-range jumpers and 36% on average on 3-pointers. However, when you value in the value of each of those shots as mid-rangers are worth just 2 points and 3-pointers are worth 3 points, you can see why the 3 is certainly a more valuable shot. 0.36 times 3 is 1.08. 0.45 times 2 is 0.9. You're generating 0.18 more points per possession when you're taking a three-pointer rather than a two-pointer. Obviously, this is a very generalized stat, as it certainly depends on who's taking the shot, but in general, you're better off forcing the opponent to take mid-range shots. And in Game 5, the Bucks did an excellent job of making Phoenix live in the mid-range instead of from beyond the arc, where they would be a much more efficient jump-shooting team. This was especially true when it came to the way in which the Bucks defended the off-the-ball players for the Suns, as neither Cam Johnson, Mikal Bridges, nor Jay Crowder were able to get going in Game 5 because the Bucks forced the Suns to really play one-on-one hero ball, especially Devin Booker, which takes me into my next key. The fourth biggest key for the Bucks is to force Devin Booker to beat them by himself. Now, this might sound a little counterintuitive because Booker has been fantastic for Phoenix over the past couple games. Devin had 40 points in both Game 4 and Game 5. However, the common pattern between those two games is that Phoenix was unable to come away with victories in either contest. One of the biggest reasons for that is the fact that the Bucks defense was not collapsing on Booker. They were forcing Booker to work one-on-one, and while D-Book is one of the single best scorers in the entire NBA, he's not going to be able to beat their defense each and every time, especially when they're able to force him into the difficult shots that he's been relying on making over the past couple of outings. If the Bucks can continue to make Booker settle for these tough shots, it's going to be tough for him to continue making them at the rate that he has, and he also will be left unable to get his teammates involved. In the two games that Phoenix won so far in this series, Booker has had 6 assists in each contest. However, in the 3 games that the Suns have lost, Booker has had 2 assists in one game, 3 assists in another game, and 2 assists in the third game. He's averaging about 2.3 assists per game in the losses and 6 assists per game in the wins. This is a pretty clear thread between results for Phoenix, and if the Bucks can force Booker to continue to play hero ball, I give them a good shot at winning Game 6, especially because you would expect some negative regression from Booker at some point in this series, and he will be left unable to make the difficult shots that have gone in for him throughout. My fifth and next key for the Bucks winning Game 6 is to season their food on the offensive end of the court. This is something that the Bucks have struggled with a little bit so far in the playoffs, as they've consistently been forced to take difficult shots out of the isolation because they don't try to target mismatches as much as they should. This was somewhat true in Game 5, as there were too many shots taken with Mikal Bridges as the primary defender. With Bridges as the primary defender on Bucks players, they shot just 4 for 14 from the field, with Chris Middleton in particular having a much more difficult time when Bridges was the guy defending him. It was absolutely exacerbating for me when the Bucks ran a play with Middleton as the ball handler and someone who was guarded by Bridges came up and set a screen on Devin Booker, giving the Suns the switch that they wanted to put Bridges onto Middleton. Chris ended up making a huge three-pointer. This play came with about 3 minutes left, if I'm not mistaken. But anyways, it was still a frustrating shot because it would have been so much easier for Chris had he just been able to work against Booker instead of Bridges. On the other hand, when Middleton is defended by Bridges, I want to see the Bucks running that kind of ball screening action so that they can get Booker switched onto him. That's a matchup that Chris is much more able to exploit because of Booker's inferior length and positioning as to Bridges. In addition to taking advantage of Booker, the Bucks also need to go after Jay Crowder. Bucks players shot 10 for 12 from the field in Game 5 when Crowder was the primary defender. A lot of those shots were easy bunnies for Brook Lopez, but in addition to the Lopez shots inside guarded by Crowder, the Bucks were also able to take advantage of him on the perimeter, as Drew Holiday and Chris Middleton were both able to attack him to high levels of success. A lot of Middleton's easy shots came against Crowder and also against Chris Paul, especially in the fourth quarter, as down the stretch the Bucks tried time and time again to get Paul switched on to Middleton. Chris is a fighter, and he does a great job of battling with guys that are bigger than him. Chris Paul, I should say. But Middleton has a 7-inch height advantage and an even larger advantage when it comes to wingspan, as Chris Paul's wingspan is just 6 feet 0 inches. So Middleton is going to be able to get his shot up over Paul each and every time, and we saw the Bucks have some success attacking Paul on that switch in Game 5. So to me, it's very, very important that the Bucks season their food and make sure that they're exploiting matchups that they want to take advantage of rather than going at the matchups that the Suns want to have. This is also true with Giannis Antetokounmpo, as the Bucks should try to get smaller players switched onto him rather than DeAndre Ayton. The sixth and final key to the Bucks winning Game 6 is to give Jeff Teague's minutes a purpose. A lot of Bucks fans have been incredibly critical of Teague so far in this series, and that's for good reason. Teague has been a net negative in just about every single game he has played. However, I do think that Teague has a purpose in this series. That purpose is to pressure Chris Paul full court when Jrue Holiday is out of the game. In this series, we've seen that Milwaukee likes to have Holiday guarding Paul as soon as he touches the ball, and Teague is the second best option that the Bucks have when it comes to putting on that type of full court ball pressure. However, when Teague was used in Game 5, he was playing with Paul out of the game, and he also played with Brook Lopez out of the game. That meant that the Bucks were running a 1-through-5 switching scheme, so whenever DeAndre Ayton was setting a screen on the guy Teague was guarding, Jeff was forced to switch onto Ayton. This led to DeAndre punishing Jeff in the post time and time again. If instead the Bucks have Teague out there with Brook Lopez, so they're not switching and they're instead in a drop coverage, I give Jeff a much higher chance of succeeding out on the court. They also need to make sure that Paul is on the court when Teague is out there, because otherwise his full court ball pressure just isn't being utilized to its fullest. Every other player off the bench has a purpose for the Bucks. Pat Connaughton's a great shooter, and Bobby Portis works really hard on the boards and is also a spark plug as a scorer off the bench. Jeff Teague also has a purpose, but that purpose needs to be actualized, and in Game 5 it wasn't, so Teague was a -11. It needs to be actualized in Game 6 in order for Teague to truly have a reason to be on the court. With that being said, I have concluded my video on the 6 keys to the Bucks winning Game 6. Be sure to let me know in the comment section down below what your biggest keys are for Milwaukee winning this next game. Also, be sure to leave a like and subscribe, especially if you are a fellow Bucks believer. This is the place for you. I think that I've covered everything that I wanted to cover, so that's going to be it for me. Ladies and gentlemen, I will see you all again very soon.